Hello and welcome to Michael and Ivanka's Grand Podcast. It's a weekly podcast where I don't ever think of something to introduce it with anymore in advance, apparently. It's two staunch intellectuals discussing matters. I don't know what you want to call it. My name's Michael Forrest.
And I'm Ivanka Magic.
And this week, guess what we're talking about? Conspiracy theories. It's amazing we haven't done this before. Because apparently they've just gone mainstream, haven't they? You know, you got presidents and prime ministers pushing them, and it just seems like they're fair game for anyone on the internet now. Just say your conspiracy theory. Who cares? What does Snopes know?
Is there Snopes in multiple languages?
I would hope so.
I've asked myself this question, but not actually investigated.
Well, let's just, break the flow of the intro by checking this and looking down and seeing if there's a language selector. Do you know, I don't see one on the website. So only people who speak English can check facts on Snopes, which is... Could be the problem.
I wondered if there's some alternatives because anyway, I'm interested to talk about conspiracy theories because my Facebook feed in particular has altered significantly now that I'm accessing it regularly from the Balkans and posting more in Croatian and joining more Croatian groups. So I see different types of comments, different kinds of people, different kinds of things and articles. So I am more... I'm out of my safety bubble of people who query the internet, I don't know, out of my bubble. What is it? Probably tech savviness is one of the things that defines my bubble, maybe.
Yeah. I'm seeing, I think people are using this to troll as well, because I'm finding this guy who was making me I was like, whatever, when he posted something on his Facebook about Greta Thunberg being a tool of the something or other. That's so stupid.
Well, I don't understand. This is like the number of people that go, yes, but she's funded by that, and you're like, what? The people who want to make the world a better place?
She's doing it for the money.
What money?
Say so. She's just doing it to sell books. Okay, well, shut up. We're going to talk about the fact that nothing is true. Nothing means anything. And people can just spin their own nonsense and shout it into their bubbles, and it just seems like nothing matters anymore. So that's what we're going to talk about, and hopefully have some fun, think of some fun ones as well. Okay, here's music. I was listening to the podcast where I sort of lifted the let's chat first and then get onto the subject sort of template format from, and I noticed that they don't really follow it very religiously at all, and I'm probably imposing a structure on this podcast that isn't, not even necessary. How's it going, Ivanka?
It is going well, I'd say. That's always how I start while I collect my thoughts. That's my holding statement. That's the wrong post-it. I've had a good. I'm doing well. As discussed on a previous episode quite recently, I have succeeded in meditating for 5 days in a row.
Woo!
So that was good. Took me a while to actually do it after repeatedly reminding myself that I find it useful. But I've done it, and that has been nice. And we are very much the vegetarians these days, which is also nice. And the exploring, the exercise, sorry, I confused the two. The exercise thing is going quite nicely. Because what we do is we drop off the child early at nursery, like as it opens instead of a bit later. And then we go off on a sort of a run or a walk or a cycle. And I was remarking to Michael off podcast that because I realised I am fit enough to go off and not really know how long the run's going to be or where it's going to go, or just go off. So we found a really nice little beach this morning and a weird bit of road where somebody seems to... So the interesting thing about well, maybe it's not. Have you driven down the west coast of America?
Have I driven anywhere? No.
You know, have you had a road map? A road trip? A road map? A road
I haven't
trip?
done it, no. I haven't done it.
So you drive down the west coast of America land, and it's very hard to access the beach because a lot of it is owned privately. Whereas in
I
Croatia...
experienced that in Canada.
Yeah, in Croatia, you're not allowed to own the beach. It is public property.
Yeah, good.
So therefore, but people make attempts to not necessarily own it, but make it so it doesn't look very inviting for people walking by, or they might put a little roadblock in the way or something. So we found this bit where somebody's randomly chained out, put a chain across what is clearly a road that has been there for hundreds of years. It's a dirt track. So I was like, and Nick was going, should we go that way? I was like, yeah. So either we've been... it's unlikely that we were trespassing on private property, but we did find a very nice little beach that isn't even connected to their property. So I think they were just being greedy.
Imagine that.
Imagine people being greedy. But I've really enjoyed it this week. It's been I'm feeling, fit and healthy and all that. Calm.
Wonderful.
I did this meditation. I'll tell you one more story really quickly. I did this meditation yesterday where, I don't know if you ever get this, I just found it really irritating. Like I was getting that restless leg thing.
Oh,
I was like, I just don't want to sit, I can't sit still. Yeah, breathe in, breathe out, yeah. But,
I haven't been able to get back into it. I haven't done it nearly. I really need to find some time. I just feel like I've got so many half-hour things to do every morning before I can even do any work now. I can't meditate as well. I'm learning Italian. God damn it.
This is what I've changed. Instead of trying to do it in the morning or the evening, I have my lunch and then I do it. And then, so it's like a punctuation mark before I start the afternoon's activities. That sounds good because it might stop me doing my I just want to keep eating habit. Might be a good way of okay, the food has been eaten now. Allow it to start digesting so that you don't think you're still hungry. And then, all's good. Maybe that'll work. I don't know. Anyway, that was what I've done.
It sounds like you're getting on with it and living life.
Indeed it does. How are you, Michael?
Molto bene. Sto bene. I don't know. I'm okay. I found my excitement levels again. I've been doing some soldering. Just making stuff. We're going mushroom hunting tomorrow.
Oh, where?
In the woods. I can't remember where it is.
I would love to know how to do things like that.
Well, I just... Because with my admin regime, one of them is think about holidays. Because I did have a bit of I was feeling really bad that I never find time to actually think about holidays or anything like that. So now it's in my schedule. So I booked some mushrooms and I'm thinking about some other things. I might learn to drive.
Blimey, controversial. Just when the world is thinking about giving up on cars.
Well, are they though?
But I think we're going to need driving skills in the Mad Max apocalypse that's coming.
I think anyway. It's probably a better way than flying, and and a cheaper way than trains for some of these things. So I don't know what to do. You can't really win.
No, it's a useful skill.
Yeah, enough judgment from you.
You might have to. You
driving across Europe.
So,
I've heard that Greta Thunberg is a pawn of the Rothschilds.
Of the Rothschilds.
The Rothschilds.
I've never heard who she's a pawn of. That's the thing. They just kind of go, yeah, and who has funded her solar yacht that she sailed across the Atlantic on. Who gives a shit? There's some people who care about the planet.
Some people have been inspired by what she says.
And who've got money. Or, it's the thing. Nick and I sit there and I go, because I read these, especially the Croats. I've joined this one group. Croats they don't trust any form of authority.
Yeah.
that is, I think, primarily because they have been right to do so in the past. Like the former, like the Balkans has been occupied by another force for about 800 years. Like the Slavs arrived, probably longer. The Slav little troops arrived in the 8th century or something, and then since then someone else has always been telling them what to do, so they've somehow retained an identity, and they're all mental in a delightful way that I adore, and then you had this sort of communist rule that was also like like nobody trusted. There was all like there's no trust of the government. So therefore, you join, and it's not abating because it's really very similar people still in charge. Though I don't follow Croatian politics very carefully, so they're all on these Facebook forums. And the other thing I reminded somebody of the other day: everybody my age, most men my age, and a lot of women have fought in a war. Mm-hmm. So there's something like traumatized about this whole generation of people. So I think that also affects their you don't know. But you go onto a forum. I've joined this forum, this group on Facebook that's about plant a tree on the 26th, 27th of October in Croatia. Yeah. It's called, plant a tree, don't be a plank, which I think is an excellent sort of little tagline. But anyway, you go on and somebody plants a tree. Somebody goes, hey, I planted a tree in my garden. And they go, that is not a tree from this, that is authentically Croatian and from these regions. That is a tree that is an invasive species. And then whatever anybody does, somebody sort of comes in and shits on their idea. And in those same things, they go, yeah, and this Greta Thunberg and her, who does she think she is, a little snotty-nosed teenager. Come on, we've been fighting for the climate for the last 30 years. Like that, I think jealousy is a bit of it. So
it's those ones are no one can become too famous or no one can be liked. There's a limit to how much people will tolerate someone being liked before they'll start trying to destroy them.
Yeah, that's true.
And it's just a bit and sometimes it's just done without, just so indiscriminately that you just get a bit depressed about humanity.
But I was saying to Nick, okay, so she's calling out on a massively loud public stage. So even if somebody's writing her words, that somebody is saying, we have got to save the planet. So, and
It's like a way to ignore the message. It's just another way to kind of keep your head in the sand. And this is the irony of the conspiracy theorist. They're like, I've taken the red pill. I've woken up and you're still asleep and you're a zombie and you believe everything you're told, whereas but the irony of it being that they are avoiding these truths of climate change by inventing some sort of sandpit to stick their head into. That's fascinating enough that they can avoid reality. It's oh no, this one's much more interesting. It's much more interested if aliens are behind something. It's much more interesting if there's a giant global conspiracy of Jews. Like that, I prefer that narrative because that's, I don't know, is it that's not something I could ever do something about? Is it? Maybe
I think that's it. I was about to say,
responsibility for my actions again.
It's not. Right. It's like that sort of if it's God's will, but instead of it being God, it's now the conspiracy
uncontrollable forces of
the lizard people. That's not to say that in our previous episode, I didn't talk about the fact that the billionaires are quite happy to manipulate all of us into believing that their bullshit jobs are not bullshit. However, that's not, in my view, quite the same as sitting on the internet banging on about the fact that Greta Thunberg is a plant.
Well, it's the thing with the billionaires is it's a lot of it's public record. You can just go and see. It's not it's not conspiracy theory if you can look and find their tax return. If you can actually see. How is that a conspiracy theorist? But you sort of feel like it, like you're being a conspiracy theorist somehow. But it's not the same as, they're all, aliens, lizards, like in special suits, which is stuff that could not be disproved or proved because each fact can just be undermined by a further bizarre modification of the premise.
I shared this thing last night. I stumbled upon this Australian politician has done this little skit, which is a Greta Thunberg helpline. So outraged people can phone, are you a white middle-aged man who feels the need to shout at a teenager? And then, there's a whole, it's worth watching. It doesn't make a person. Well,
what's the punchline?
But that's quite, I mean, the fact that I watched it with Nick, I think it's like, I think that's a good use of a comedian's time, though. It's like, so what do you want? I'll leave the punchline unsaid, but it's
fine.
It's not. But he calls out the fact that you're like, the ridiculousness of it, of attacking. So it's like that sketch with
like,
the whole.
Why is this upsetting you so much? Like, why are you obsessed with this now?
Why is this? I mean, I think apart that thing I was saying about what you said. Sorry about nobody's allowed to get. There's an X amount of fame or popularity that you can have before, but. And maybe it is just ego, because going back to because I've got a very close friend that I've known since I was about 8, and she's apoplectic when she talks about Greta on Facebook. I've had to mute her for a month just to because I don't really know how to address it. What is your problem? But anyway, so yes, they're sort of coming up with the random explanations for what she might be doing. Whereas, if you've got I don't know, the what's making you chuckle?
Just as because it couldn't possibly be the thing she's saying.
No. It's like couldn't possibly, and it's not like the climate science news isn't alarming. It is alarming. Yeah. Alaska has no ice coverage for the first time in recorded history. It is alarming. And so to then hit upon the person that's actually managed to grab the megaphone and go, hello, this is alarming. Can somebody please do something about it? Seems really odd to me.
It's not alarming.
No. Oh, she just wants attention. Like every teenager.
Yes, it's just an Instagram. She just wants to be an influencer.
Yeah. That is a phenomenon.
So do you.
That's the problem. Did you see that a Chinese influencer got outed by her landlady? Like an Instagram persona on a Chinese Instagram persona. It's all of parties and Swiss holidays.
Yeah.
Her landlady. Her flat is so filthy that her landlady outed it. And she's had to apologise. And you know how China does all this stuff where they're actually, if you want a conspiracy theory, it's look no further than China, where they're trying to award people sort of, what are they called? Societal points. Social points, or based on just all the data they hold on you. And so influencers, whilst they allow this sort of capitalist influencer behaviour, they are required to behave well. There's an expectation, a requirement. In fact, I read this article, that's why I'm sounding also knowledgeable. But this one guy actually did 10 days in prison for behaving in a not very respectful way. I think he mocked the national anthem or something. Anyway, this woman's got a... her flat is, lit really filthy. And so she's been totally outed as being not... Imagine this, that her Instagram account, or whatever it is, Weibo account, is not a fair reflection of her actual life.
No, this is not possible. but then that's exactly the... Yeah, is that why people can't believe that Greta can be real?
Maybe,
because it seems so... sort of it could appear sort of curated because she is so sort of clear and but I mean, come on, people, It's not. It's just like listen to the message.
Yeah,
Stop attacking them.
But
That's
also,
all
if you
we can
want to
say.
do some research, if you want to Snopes her a bit, like there's very respected journalists and publications have been to interview her. Like the FT interviewed her, 18 months ago, and the woman, I can't actually remember if it was a man or a woman who wrote the article, but it was like, you know, she first of all she follows a vegan diet, and then there was this whole thing because she couldn't finish all the food on her plate, and like food waste is a crime. Like,
Food waste though, like.
yeah, but no, hang on. What do you mean?
That's one of the if you want to be healthy,
You don't
shoveling
have-
down all of the food on your
Okay.
plate, whether or not you're hungry, is not.
But that's not
But it's one of those things, isn't it? But
But that's a separate topic.
it's become this moral outrage though. Like, and I was quite pleased when I kind of was like, okay, it's actually probably better to leave some food than to just be gross.
So I agree with you entirely,
probably
and I
wasn't it.
bring my child up. I've never made her finish her. Like, if you've had enough, stop eating. So I totally know all that. However, in this instance, it's like she's by her own admission on the spectrum. So it's like this whole living a climate-friendly life or a sustainable life is really important to her. And the issue was resolved when the food was given to the pet Labrador. Do you see what you know? Like it's.
Yeah.
And I agree with we waste very little food, but I also cook less food than I used to. I don't cook as though there's like 20 of us, if there's only 3. So there's that sort of thing. But that was my point was that this journalist spent some time with her, where enough time that there's nowhere to hide.
Yeah.
Like
right.
there's only so long a 16-year-old girl is going to be able to fake it.
Yeah, but the journalist's in on it, Ivanka.
Oh yeah, sorry. It's an
You see,
intellectual
and don't forget-
conspiracy to save the world.
Don't forget that all the papers are owned by this global, cabal of people that want to impose a liberal worldview on us and take away our freedom.
I think it's very interesting though, because I can sit both sides of that. I can use that argument when I'm talking about the Daily Mail or the Express.
Yeah.
You know, it's like.
But again, it's the different. The difference is this is a matter of public record that these papers are owned by the same person, and we can see this person and their behaviour. So, it's difficult because. Yeah, I mean, and also just because you're paranoid doesn't mean they're not out to get you. Like there is.
I mean,
there is that
Cambridge
as well.
Analytica being a sort of a proof. I think a proof
stuff
point.
is going on. There's loads of people trying stuff all the time. There is no doubt about that. Like, but the fact of it, the truth of it is like, and you sort of, I think anyone that's worked in government a little bit knows that they wouldn't have the fucking, they don't know their ass from their elbow. Like, they're not going to be able to mount a conspiracy, the types of which, like, people look at power and think that they are capable of anything. But when you actually kind of come in contact with those people that are powerful, you go, Christ, these useless. They're certainly not interested in micromanaging your perception of this or that. Like, they're more interested in, smoking some weed out of their vaporizer and flying off to go surfing. Like,
but I think that's also the part of conspiracy theories and these kind of attitudes is that they're based around focusing on bad human behaviour. And we've discussed on multiple times, and I did re-listen to our fake news episode the other day because I was getting so, I was like, I was getting so, starting to feel quite ratty about reading these things and thinking, what is, even vaccinations came up the other day with somebody who is in a position, like a master's educated person who, and they were like, should I vaccinate my child? And I was like, yes, but it's not. But you see, if you read enough articles, I think anybody is going to start going, well, oh, maybe the fake news is not the fake news, and the news that is the news is the fake news. And so I think if you're constantly bombarding it, feeds into your fears, and your desire to protect your child is probably one of the most base feelings that people have.
Did you see the Penn and Teller video? That was quite good.
No.
Here is their one on vaccinations.
No, I haven't seen it.
It's good. I'll put it in. That's one to send people.
Because I said to the woman, I said, look, I have vaccinated my child. I said, I am not an immunologist or an epidemiologist or any of those things, but I have friends who are scientists. Would you like me to put you in touch? Because it's like, I'm not gonna. I was like, this is not my expertise, but I know some experts, so I'm going to do what the experts say. But because you also don't want to go, you don't want to, I like this person. Doesn't mean that I don't like them. So where was I going? So I re-listened to the fake news thing.
Yeah,
and
okay.
Because I was thinking about how do we get into this position where people believe all these articles? And there's and then one of the guys that was having a go at Greta Thunberg on this Croatian forum sent a link to an article, which was another reason why I asked about whether Snopes exist in different languages, because you need to be able to go, well, who are these? And you need this kind of, for every article you read, you need to go find, who is this firm? Who are they? What's their website? Who's paying for it? Blah, blah, blah. And we've talked about this a lot. It's like, who can be asked?
Yeah, I mean, all you can do is learn to smell it. And people, if there was a way you could sort of explain to people how to just train that sense of to smell the bullshit, because that's when you click, that's when you go, I'm proud of myself for the Brexit mad cow correlation thing that was going around and going, I mean, that's too good to be true. And and just making sure, checking it and going, right, okay, this is just not true at all. And look, the map's the same. It's that takes that's a certain type of expertise, isn't it? Being able to. But that's why that Facebook thing. It's only done it to me once, but Facebook now proactively contacting people later if they've in the past shared a thing that has been shown to be fraudulent. Nonsense. Kind of thing, or not true. I think that's maybe the only way to do it, and then people hide notifications like this. But I think people can change their views if they're given the facts. That's the thing. I think most people, it's the information overload and it's too many facts to choose from that's causing the problem more than lack of information, right? It's focus, it's direction, it's.
I think so. Yeah, I think there's so many aspects of it. And I mean, a good conspiracy theory can be fun. Let's still debate whether or not America landed on the moon. Let's still debate whether who shot JFK. There's our famous conspiracy.
Buzz Aldrin there.
But
he's very proud of when he punched the conspiracy theorist. I saw him speak at WWDC in the flesh, and he was very proud of his when he punched that guy.
But you've got to these are things that keep people entertained, aren't they?
Ivanka. I saw the greatest. I know this is. You mentioned moon landing. I saw the greatest YouTube video I've ever seen, which was a 10-minute explanation from an astronaut of how they go to the toilet and have showers and stuff in space. Finally. I've been waiting for this information for so long. It's weird, but amazing. And I will put that in the link. Watch it. It's the best thing I've ever seen. It's just so many questions answered.
I read a Twitter thread about this exact same thing. I spend much more time on Twitter than YouTube. After that was that big thing about there couldn't be an all-women spacewalk because they didn't have enough spacesuits that fitted women. And then somebody did an explainer that included an explanation of going to the loo in space. But yeah, I look forward to watching it. I'll watch it with my daughter. We talk about
you have to use this camera. There's a camera of underneath this toilet seat hole that you've got to practice lining up with because people don't know where they are. So you've got to literally look at this camera and go, oh right, back a bit, forward a bit, so that you can get it into this tiny little tube.
That sounds like a great Do you want to go into space?
Ever since listening to Shuttleworth's talk, and just how much he mentioned the toilet made me realise, it's got to be stinky, hasn't it? It's got to be a bit like, I think, like not being able to open a window or go outside. I think it might be more horrible and claustrophobic than it's worth. I'd like to see this 23 sunsets a day, but I'm sure that'll get old pretty quick.
His talk
do it in VR.
Did make me feel more inspired about space than afraid of it, which is what I'd always been. But I still had no interest. I have never wanted to go into space.
I'd always wanted to go to space.
No, if we have to all decamp to Mars or something, you're going to have to tranquilise me massively, or just just put me out of misery. But anyway, so yes, so no space for me. Thank you. This is a thing as well. Like when you meet a person in person and they start talking to you about something, and you know, maybe they tell you one story and like, oh wow, yeah, and then they tell you another story and then a third story, and you're like, really? Sounds like bullshit to me. Or there's something about it. It's hard to maintain that sort of like, the sort of illusion of knowing what you're talking about. But on a Facebook comment, one can sound incredibly authoritative.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? Like, this is what made me follow this, because it's not just about what they're saying, it's about who they are. So there was this woman commented about this, Greta being a load of nonsense. And I was like, oh, you seem to be speaking with great confidence about that. So I clicked on her profile. So she's got a very... she's got a very not Slavic name, and her written Croatian was very good. That's not impossible. And then, like, there was just all this other stuff she'd posted, and I was like, are you a real person? Like, what are you? How are you? Why are you even on this group? You don't even live in Croatia. And, like, this is a group about planting trees in Croatia. So of what... There is a benefit to, on the conspiracy theory, on the sort of the people who want to keep digging fossil fuels out of the planet have an incentive to get us all.
They have the resources, and
trolls.
they did it. They did it. With the euro, with the the Brexit thing as well. They just started planting the seeds, didn't they? So that there are people.
With the funds
Russian
and the
bots,
means,
everywhere. So maybe like that. I think we're sort of, we look at the conspiracy theory, but perhaps we don't spend enough time looking into the conspiracy theorist. Yeah. And maybe if we did a bit more of that, we would see. You have to look behind those people with those. Yeah. So what did you say? But you didn't find what was your conclusion?
No, it's more that I wasn't convinced. I wasn't convinced that it was a person because of just the content of the Facebook feed. So because it was just like. So anyway, I didn't engage with her in this instance. I was like, in fact, I don't engage on these Croatian forums. I can't be bothered because they might come and shoot me. That's just a Croatian. It's not a. When it was the Balkan, when it was Yugoslavia, we'd be like 14, 15. Everyone got very used of being careful what they said in public, because it could be held against them. So there's a fear, like the Stasi, the KGB. Yugoslavia had the same sort of thing, where you know, you must be careful what you say outside of the home because you never know who you're talking to. So in that way, this whole nation is just like, we're all like, look around. Who am I talking to? And then when you used to pick up the phone, there was always this echo or frequent. Every so often there'd be an echo and you'd be like, I think they're listening to us. So my dad used to always have a laugh and go, hello.
Yeah.
But, you know.
Oh, God. Thing about conspiracy theories when they start getting really, you know, sort of mentally ill, like real crazy is the suspicious thing about it people need to realise is maybe as you think everything is about manipulating you, like it's a Philip K. Dick story where there's a huge web of technology and power and influence all going into manipulating just you. And like Philip K. Dick does this, you know, all his stories are like this and they're great because there's a paranoid character who is right. Like I just love that about it. Like and he sort of peels back the curtain on the sort of grand illusion that's being and also it works weirdly like A Scanner Darkly. The technology is like the premise is based on this technology that does a certain thing, and then of course there's loads of as a result of that technology all these kind of crazy things manipulations are possible, which I suppose is pretty accurate now because, you know, like a lot of manipulations are possible that without the technology wouldn't be. You kind of all of these new the new methods of communication spawn new ways to try and be manipulative. But like, I guess, is there a way to question a conspiracy theory by saying how much of this needs to be about you for this to make sense? And maybe you're not the center of the universe and people are doing things for their own reasons that maybe aren't anything to do with manipulating your perception. Have you read any Philip K. Dick?
No.
Well, that's a shame. Have you seen Total Recall or A Scanner Darkly or even The Minority Report?
No. The Minority, maybe. I don't know.
That was vague. That wasn't even particularly Philip K. Dicky.
But it's about like. But I do. What made me think of this the other day? That movie with Jim Carrey where he's... Yeah,
it's a bit of that sort of thing.
Oh, that's why we started joking about this in this, sorry, slight tangent but relevant, I think, is the... So in this village where we bought a house, there's a very fancy boutique hotel and the guy that owns it just keeps buying up bits. And we were like, we were having dinner the other day and this guy, a friend of ours goes, yeah, you know, because I was like, I'm a bit worried about the fact that the nursery's moving over there and who's going to get that building and then they're going to block off this road and make it part of the boutique hotel. He goes, oh yes, Ivanka, didn't you realise we're just part of the decoration to make the tourists believe that this is an authentic Croatian village? So it's like, so I was like, oh, like the Truman Show. It's like places, everybody, places. And we all have to walk around and sort of like pick olives and look like...
Yeah. And there is something like delicious about... the idea about peeling back the curtain on like a nicely constructed conspiracy theory is just imagine you realise that this is all a hologram. Like it doesn't get much more exciting a story than that. Like, but you know, how many Trumans can there be? Like all of you people on my Facebook feed that are acting out like this, you can't all be that special. There can't be a TV show about every single one of you. Like,
I did. I've not thought about it in that sort of terms of individual and their place in the conspiracy. But it's an interesting take.
Well, it's the schizophrenia thing. It's like they're talking to me through the TV, like when they're hearing the voices and all that kind of thing. It tends to be like a completely skewed idea of your place in the world and your level of importance in the world, which sort of it's just like a childish. It's kind of how a child sees things, really.
Totally. Yeah. You know, like I mean, as a child, you do think that your world is really, really small.
Yeah,
and you are
and
very,
think,
very important within that world.
it's like me, the Queen, the Pope, Donald Trump. It's just the five of us.
I do think there is I do think there's something about the whole, the fear guilt thing about conspiracies. It's like, because the other side of this is there's a Amnesty International story going on about, a petition to get the release of 2 people that have been arrested for helping migrants cross into Greece, rescuing them from the sea when they're trying to enter Greece. And again, if it was my English Facebook feed comments, it'd be like, oh, amazing, oh, Tia, oh, share, help the refugees, donate some money. Because I'm on this Croatian feed, it's all like, well, they are human traffickers. It's like, what? Sorry? Amnesty International, the world's leader in human rights, isn't it? Like, there's no other organisation that I know of that is more dedicated to active, knowledgeable of human rights, is putting forward some people as victims. I'm going to go with the fact that they're victims rather than criminals. Do you know what I mean? It's like, hello? So it's like, but then there's that sort of like, and that you can see that taps into the scared of immigrants storyline. And then I think the Greta thing feeds into the end of days. I mean, it's a horrible storyline, climate change, really. It's not one that's filled with joy. Nobody wants it.
If there's any way I could not have to believe it, that would be wonderful.
But if there was any way for it to be not happening, that would also be cool. In fact, that would be cooler than not believing it.
To steal the hours of my days away. I know I should be careful, try to always remain mindful, never slide too deep into a problem. Are tricky to ignore. There's something new I want now. One chocolate. I want chocolate. One chocolate. People like magical thinking, which I don't know if you can call that conspiracy theories, because they tend to be about, they're doing this, that, and the other. But I think about people who believe in ghosts and all that kind of thing. I always want to tell them, like, if there were spirits of, if ghosts were physics, if ghosts were real, right, we would be using them to fuel Priuses by now. Like, it would be mundane, because stuff that is true becomes mundane, right? It becomes
Michael,
just boring.
But it's just because you just haven't found the right technology yet to prove that they exist. I mean, just because you can't prove it.
Just because you can't prove it. But then I know that you, as the person that believes in ghosts, that when the technology does come in that proves it, it will lose all interest for you because you don't care about there being ghosts. You care about there being something more than is known and that there's a magical world beyond our own. And that's what you want to believe. But the trouble is there are lots of like magnetism is nuts. Like when you think about it, very exciting, but it's mundane. So no one gets that excited. People get momentarily excited about magnets. And it would be the same if there were a lot of these things. It would just be there. But maybe that's the same mechanism that I think like Trump is using. Like just own it, own the lies, own all this stuff so that it becomes mundane instead of this, what's the thing that they're not telling us? I think that's like a source of his power, a source of his success is like he doesn't leave anything in that realm of the intriguing and the unknown. He pulls it all back down into mundane reality so that it just gets kind of filed away and everyone kind of moves on to the next thing that's emerging.
I think why is it, when you talk about your magical, there's a world out there that we don't know.
Yeah.
Those people how many of those people become scientists and actually seek to prove a thing? Or
Ghost hunters.
But they're not. But do you know what I mean?
Ghost hunters aren't people that believe it. Ghost hunters that are people that like getting money out of people that want to believe it. Like,
but there's if you really, really seek to understand, then becoming a scientist seems the obvious answer. But if it's not, it's like a kind of a drug,
Ivanka,
isn't it?
I hate to break it to you, but scientists lie. Scientists lie too.
Oh my God.
Like that one that wrote that article in the Daily Mail about vaccines causing autism.
That one.
Sorry, I just completely turned that hilarious point inside out and undermined any source of... Continue.
But yes, the why they don't become scientists? Yes, because believing in conspiracy theories and enjoying them is a form of entertainment.
Yes.
It's a beautiful form. It's not like, you don't have to take a drug. It's quite inexpensive. You just have to...
and it's something
accessible.
It's like we used to get to think like that about things. 500 years back... You did live in a world of magical magical griffins and super-powered super forces, and I don't know, like it was like the Marvel Cinematic Universe was just the universe. Like 500 years ago, like 300 years ago, it was just like all this stuff that now we just have to get through fiction and know that it's fiction. We just used to think those were real, and it was just. I guess that's kind of humbling and like. Kind of helps you kind of understand your insignificance in the greater scheme of things and your kind of lack of control. And it's something we've lost now because we do know too much to have that magical view of the universe.
Yeah, maybe.
And so we've got to look for it in these conspiracy theories.
Though they rarely are about some positive magic, are they? They tend to be very dark. And angry.
But they're explanations, though, and that's really the point.
True.
Like the explanation is Thor, the god of thunder, is causing. Oh no, there's Thor's. I've done something. My crops must have. It's the same. Like you can believe that it's all about you still, whilst also believing that there's something that you have no access to, or oh, the crops are failing. I must have. I swore. I don't know. I took the Lord's name in vain, and now there's a thunderstorm. It's.
True. Yeah, I think that's the and it.
Right.
Yeah.
Pattern recognition, just going to work on stuff that is really out of its realm of expertise, right?
Thinking back to my friend who is well knowledgeable of this conspiracy theory of who Greta truly is. I'd say she's quite a depressed person. I'd say she's quite an unhappy person.
What? No, I think Donald Trump thinks she's a very happy young woman.
No, not Greta, my friend.
Oh, your friend.
Who believes the story, the angry one.
Yeah, the unhappy people.
The unhappy,
looking for someone to blame.
She's unhappy, and I think, and that's what's putting me off talking to her about it. Because in some ways I'm like, look, if getting angry about this is helping you get through your day, then I don't want to burst your, you know what I mean? I don't want to confront it, because that's how I feel about it. There's no, I'm not exaggerating in any way. It's like, I know your story. It's not a happy story. Okay. But I don't think this is a helpful, I don't think it's making you any happier.
Well, that's the thing. And that's when you think about if everyone in the world was just happier, then they wouldn't need this bullshit to get through the day. And it's very easy to get caught up in this cat and mouse game of I'm going to disprove your crazy theory and then I'm going to find a way that my theory is still okay. No, and I'm going to keep soy does make you less of a man kind of thing. All those kinds of things. People wouldn't need that if they had some sort of fulfilling existence so much.
Yeah, I think we're still back to our inequality situation.
And it is very deeply tied into the inequality situation. There's no millionaires being conspiracy theorists.
Unless
maybe they
them.
are. I don't know. Maybe there are.
Maybe they. I mean,
they're making them up. Certainly, they're certainly probably putting
Feeding
fuel
them.
into some of them.
Yeah.
If you have that kind of power that you could just plant a pattern in, it's that tenuous. I think it'll comes back down to pattern recognition based on things that really have no way of really being connected. So if you just think of the person with the wall full of pictures and maps and pins and the room full of lines connecting things to other things, and it's the fourth character on every word of this chapter of the Bible corresponds with the surnames of the nephews of each of the three cousins of two of the victims. If you keep looking for patterns for long enough, you can find them, but it's probably not true if you're having to be that
thorough.
If you're looking at that's what we do, and that's what gives us pleasure, to find patterns in things. That's how we operate. That's the essential nature of our intelligence, I think. We can connect two things together, and that gives us a little buzz of excitement. So fuel on that fire in the wrong hands. And that's why it's very attractive to, I think, a lot of people who consider themselves not sheeple, who consider themselves intellectuals but haven't really studied or haven't really put a lot of work into that. They just sort of have it and then they sort of enjoy reading conspiracy theories and stuff because it sort of makes them feel like they're seeing something that other people aren't. But if more people could just, put that instinct towards learning some science, learning some stuff that's actually maybe a bit harder, but might actually be true. That would be.
We do. Yeah, I think also there's something arrogant in me connecting it to somebody who's sad.
I don't know. I think it's a fair point.
Because we all like to feel, because it's not just about being. We all like to feel clever, don't we? It's like
no one wants to feel stupid.
So if you feel what you were just saying about it being if you feel like you can see something that nobody else can see, or what you've just said, I'm just wondering whether thinking of my friend, am I going to be, I'm just, I can just see so much more clearly than you. And therefore, I'm right and you're wrong, though I am right.
It is possible for one person to be right and the other person to be wrong.
It's entirely possible,
Sorry, conspiracy theorists, but you're wrong most of the time. But, even a stopped clock is right once a day, twice a day. Yeah. Depends on if it's 24 hour. I don't know how that works. What's a clock? I came into the house a couple of days ago in the evening, and
was there a ghost?
When the door closed, it closed a bit harder than I didn't even understand why, actually. So it caught me by surprise a little bit. That it wasn't a big slam, but I was like, oh, It's a bit loud. And then I kind of went upstairs, took my shoes off, and there's like a knock downstairs, and it's my neighbour. This guy, he's I don't know. He goes, "Can you not slam the door so much?" And I'm like, "Sorry, yeah, I wasn't expecting it because the airflow is different. So, look, I'm asking you nicely. Just can you not slam the doors, please?" And I'm like, "Okay then, bye." And then I'm just thinking, like, I know that the reason you're unhappy is not because I just shut the door a bit loud. So I'm going to try and hold that empathy for you, even though you can f*** off. The point being, like, I wish it would be... I suppose what we just want everyone that likes conspiracy theories is an explanation for their unhappiness. No, it's austerity and inequality and tax evasion. That's why. It's not immigrants or the Rothschilds or astronauts or whatever the hell you think is going on.
Lizards.
It's this stuff that we actually know, so stop being wrong and be right and join us.
Yeah.
All right, thanks for listening. If you like the podcast, go to grandpodcast.com and subscribe if you haven't already. Or if you're already subscribed, subscribe someone else every day. Just set aside 5 minutes a day just to subscribe someone to our podcast. What's so hard about that? Aren't we the centre of everything? Or are you part of this conspiracy to keep us down and keep us silenced? Where can people find you on the internet, Ivanka?
People can find me at Ivanka on Twitter, and these days I'm trying very hard to be available and doing things on Grand Podcast Instagram and Grand Podcast Twitter, but all this switching modes is taxing.
Blog posts?
Blog posts. Yeah, I'm going to write a blog post.
Ivanka's going to do it.
I'm going to do it.
She's going to do it.
She is.
Little bloggy post. You can find me at michaelforestmusic.com and come and follow me on Instagram because I'm doing some fun stuff there at the moment and I'm going to try and keep it. I think I can keep it going. I need to get the production time from 4 hours to half an hour though, which was the original plan. But yeah, come and see that. And if you fancy posh pants, come on, just weird. Just asking for $1, please. Have you got any spare change? Just $1,
No,
please.
no.
I haven't got a job. I'm homeless. I'm not. What else can people do?
People could write us some reviews on whatever app platform, whatever you're listening to this on, or do some star ratings, things like that. Help us beat the machine that is keeping us down.
Please.
Please.
Feed the algorithm on our behalf because we can't do it ourselves without setting up a network of Russian bots.
Which, frankly, I don't have time to do right now.
Sounds like a lot of troubleshooting. All right. Thanks for listening.
Thank you.
See you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye. 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 Bye.